Okay, just so you know, we are live and recording. The meeting is live streamed and recorded and available on the Town of Parry Sound website at www.parrysound.ca. And prior to the open session, there was a closed meeting. It was moved by Councillor McDonald, seconded by Councillor McCann, that pursuant to section 239(2) and 3 of the Municipal Act SO 2001 C25 as amended, Council of the Corporation, the Town of Parry Sound moves to a special meeting closed to the public in order to address matters pertaining to D, labor relations or employee negotiations, non-union employees' compensation and benefits, and E, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, Parry Sound Area Municipal Airport. And that meeting was held. At this time, I'd like to recognize that we're on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe people under the Robinson-Huron Treaty of 1850 and the waterways traveled by the Métis of this region. May I have a mover and seconder for the agenda, please? Councillor Keith and Councillor Ashford. Are there any changes to Councillor McCann?
I was going to suggest that we could possibly move up 942 for the benefit of those in the chambers here.
Okay. Any other items? Nope. Okay. Then that the council agenda for September 3rd, 2024 be approved as amended. All in favor? That's carried. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof? Councillor McCann?
Yes, that would be for, I'm declaring a conflict with, sorry, bear with me here. Item 954, approval of the Parry Sound Community Radio Association request for location of radio transmission. As I'm the chair of that board, I will step out for that conversation.
Okay. Councillor Ashford?
I'll declare a conflict with the same item. I'm also on the board for that organization.
Oh, okay. Anyone else on that board? Just checking. All right. Mover and seconder for the minutes, Councillor Keith and Councillor McDonald, that the minutes of the regular council meeting held August 18th, 2024 be approved as circulated. Any discussion or comments on those meetings? Minutes. Oh, it's August 13th. Okay. All right. Any discussion or comment on those minutes? No? All in favor then? That's carried. Thank you. So it's council's wish to deal with 942 first before we get into the other part of it. Okay. All right. We'll deal with 942. Councillor Barnum? Yes.
I'm just thinking there may be a deputation with respect to that issue.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I was informed that there potential was a person that was going to make a deputation. Okay. If sure, how about you do that, and then you can do it now, and then it's fresh in council's mind, and we'll do our other deputation as we follow through. But I'm sure there's a lot of people would like to do something else with their evening. So come up to the microphone and.
Pull it up on that will take me a few minutes.
Sorry about that.
I think most of us have seen it, so.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
So basically,
You need
Side button first. There you go.
Hello, my name is Matt Simmons. I'm a resident of Parry Sound. I'm also the administrator of a Facebook group that a group of us decided to create when we met in person in early July. When we first heard of the June 18th proposal to remove the Wabano Road Bridge. And so we created thanks again to council for deferring that for public feedback. And so as part of that, getting the word out, we created a Facebook page, and in the earlier deputation by Jacob Kennedy, he mentioned that Facebook page, and in addition, the letters that were the people sent into the town. And I just wanted to recap basically the numbers from the Facebook page, because I just found out how to do that. I'm not a Facebook expert, but was able to find the numbers. And if you just bear with me for a minute, it's just what we really wanted to convey tonight was the overwhelming sentiment and opinion of what we've heard on the Facebook page. And that is obviously number one. We originally thought that the intent of this meeting was a vote on a yes, no to remove the bridge, but that has since been changed to a number of options for review. And so it was important, I thought, to try to make it clear that the overwhelming majority of people want the bridge as it is now, a timber bridge restored using the funding in place, the Ontario infrastructure funding. They don't want a hybrid bridge, a new bridge, some, a high-tech bridge. I'm just relaying, this is what the overwhelming opinion of the people that have contacted us have stated. And just to give you some numbers, our Facebook page has approximately 840 people. The member demographics are quite interesting. 65 and over, 150, 55 to 64, 130 people, 45 to 54, 123 people, 35 to 44, 125, 70 people, 25 to 34. And the members and their cities that they identify as being from on Facebook, 619 members from Parry Sound. So it's not a lot of people from other places, although there is a significant number of people that have probably come as tourists to visit. But just to summarize, we're asking for potentially an option 5, if possible, and that is to wait and do nothing until we get the new OSIM 2024 report to get to know exactly the costs of the restoration and removal of individual members if necessary, and then go from there to see if it's within the budgeted OSIF funding of $350K to restore and rehabilitate the bridge, which again is what people telling us is what they want. Okay, that's basically it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we had resolution 942, which was submitted on June 18th, and it was moved by Councillor McDonald and seconded by Councillor Borneman. And the resolution read that council accept the recommendation for removal of the Wabano Street Fitness Trail Bridge and to create a safe and usable level crossing to ensure that a future infrastructure servicing corridor is available. So that was deferred, okay, and okay, thank you. That was deferred. So at this time, council has an opportunity to defeat that resolution or move forward, but we also have direction as well, which has been provided to. And I can read that direction just so that you know what it is that staff be directed to further refine option 2, replace existing bridge at current grade, and option 3, replace existing bridge with increased height clearance under the bridge for the replacement of the existing structure over Wapenya Road, and the staff report back to council with additional details regarding option 2 and 3 prior to any work being undertaken. So I think primarily that's item 942B. I think we need to deal with 942 first, decide to get it off the table or whatever we're going to do with it. So are there any comments on 942? No? Then I will call the vote on that particular one. Councillor McCann?
Well, I was asked to ask for a recorded vote on these ones here. I know we're moving forward here, but
Okay,
I'm just passing along that request.
sure. Yep.
So we're looking to defeat this one then yet. So we're voting in the negative then really basically.
Well, I
In
actually,
response to Councillor McCann's request for a recorded vote, I will ask members of council to say whether they are in favor or opposed to the recommendation that was postponed from the June 18th meeting. And that recommendation was that council accept the recommendation for removal of the Wabano Street Fitness Trail Bridge and to create a safe and usable level crossing to ensure that a future infrastructure servicing corridor is available. As I said, that was postponed from the June 18th meeting. So I will ask members of council now whether they are in favor or opposed to that resolution. Councillor Ashford?
nay.
Councillor Bileski? Councillor Borneman?
No.
Councillor Keith?
No.
Councillor McCann?
I'll go with no too.
Councillor McDonald?
No.
Mayor McGarvey?
No.
So the resolution is defeated. Defeated unanimously.
So now we have the direction which I had made you aware of, and you are aware of it anyway. I need a mover and seconder for this direction. Councillor Keith, Councillor McCann. You want me to read it again? Councillor McDonald?
Is it possible to add into this direction, to include an option, to look into option 1 as well for cost?
For the, like, to repair the existing bridge, right?
Right. So option 1, 2, and 3 be
I would
explored?
hope that that would be the case, because I think that's what
Okay,
overwhelmingly the public wants.
right.
So it's a motion to amend, so you're moving that,
Yes.
to amend that. Councillor Borneman is seconding that amendment. Any questions on the amendment? Councillor McCann.
With what Mr. Simmons brought forward, could we add an option 5 on this one and wait for that report? Is that something that council wants to entertain tonight or has an appetite for, an option 5?
Well, I guess the question to Mr. Kearns is that if we're going to review all of these different options, we're going to have costing on the repair of the existing bridge then as well, correct?
Yeah, yes, your worship, that's correct. And we have already scheduled to have the OSIM inspection completed for 2024. So this is part of the process.
We don't need an option 5. We
Okay,
just need-
good.
We just need 1, 2, and 3. Anyway, any further discussion on the amendment? No? All in favor of the amendment? Any opposed to the amendment? Okay, I've got one, looks like abstention. Okay. All right, anyway, that's carried. Okay, so we're including option 1 in the direction. Any comments on the direction as amended? Counselor McCann?
Simply that would ask for a recorded vote once again.
Sure. Yep.
Counselor Ashford,
Oh, Counselor Keith, what?
I just want to add that in the event that we support what is being presented tonight, that when staff are preparing the information and preparing that whole report, I think sometimes what also gets missed is the value of something. So we get figures for what it will cost A, B, C, and D. But I hope that if it's possible, the value of marketing our community, that sort of information can be, if there's a way to bring up any stats for that can be presented too, because that certainly is another factor when you're making a decision.
Okay, all right.
so voting on the direction as amended. Counselor Ashford,
Counselor Voleski?
shall I read it?
Yeah, go ahead.
So the direction is that staff be directed to further refine option 1 and option 2, replace existing bridge at current grade, and option 3, replace existing bridge with increased height clearance under the bridge for the replacement of the existing structure over Wabano Road, and that staff report back to council with additional details regarding options 1, 2, and 3 prior to any work being undertaken. Counselor Ashford?
Yeah, Counselor Borneman.
I just ask that when we get to that point, that the full engineering reports be attached to the staff report
Yeah.
that we receive, so as there's no missing pieces for us and
Yeah.
or the public.
That would be good. Yeah. Did you have it? No? Okay. Are we good now to call for the vote? Ms. Johnson?
Counselor
Oh,
Ashford?
Counselor Ashford. Okay, you're,
Yay.
okay.
Counselor Beliski?
Yes.
Counselor Borneman?
Yes.
Counselor Keith?
Yes.
Counselor McCann?
Yes.
Counselor McDonald?
Yes.
Mayor McGarvey?
Yes.
So that passes unanimously, that direction.
We're voting to bring the options back and the costing on the 3 options for the bridge itself. And then we'll bring that back, and then council will have all the details. And what was included in here that wasn't included in the original direction was that option 1, which was the repair of the existing bridge, be included in that. So it's not excluded. Okay? That's, so right now, questions from the audience are, Counselor Keith, please.
Yes, thank you. My question is, do we have an approximate date when that report might be returned to council, please?
Through your worship. So we don't have a date for the actual inspections. I'm guessing it's going to be early winter before we have the complete report back, as the OSIM involves all of our structures as well. So for economics and efficiencies, we have them all done at the same time. So it should be early winter, I would just expect when we see
Yeah.
that.
Okay, thank you. Counselor
Just to be clear though, tonight, the bridge is staying. It's a matter of whether it's gonna be repaired or replaced.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor McDonald, did you have your hand up?
I guess this would be for Mr. Cairns. The state of the bridge in its current condition for another winter seems to be that it's safe enough for the groomer and whatnot to still use it for one more season.
Through your worship. So according to the last structural inspection, I would say yes. I don't want to suppose. We will have we'll have that conversation with the firm doing the inspection to perhaps move that up in case there are any identified issues that need to be addressed before winter. But there has been a couple of years have passed since that inspection, so there's I don't want to make that assumption, but we'll certainly try and expedite that inspection.
Anyone else have their hand?
Well, that was my question as well.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
all right.
okay.
So that's taken care of. Any other questions? We can get on with the regular agenda? Okay, all right. Okay, we're moving on with the rest of the agenda now. So questions of staff. Councillor McCann.
Okay, thank you very much. For Mr. Kearns, a couple of questions here, or this might actually be for bylaw. I was asked to check into this week about parking at Champlain Street.
Councillor McCann, just 1 second. Just so everyone knows, unless you want to stay and enjoy the rest of the meeting, which you're quite welcome to, but otherwise, thank you very much for coming out and yeah. Councillor McCann, you may continue.
Well, now my audience is gone. There goes all the fun. So I was asked to bring this forward. Other municipalities, I understand, I've been told, make room for their local residents to park near boat launching facilities. Apparently, that's not necessarily the case here where it's a first come and first served basis. There are people who like to drop their boat, who live in the area, like to drop their boat in the water for the day down at Champlain, but there's nowhere to park. I guess I'm asking if there is a possibility of having a certain part of the parking reserved for residents. I know that might be hard to police, but is that something that we can do for our local people?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I believe Ms. Kruger's online. She'll probably also speak to this. First, I'd like to say, though, is that the Champagne boat launch, unfortunately, is relatively unorganized because it's a gravel parking lot. It's difficult to manage at the best of times in terms of having people park in appropriate manners without there being lines to guide them. So it's a difficult lot to manage to begin with. I'm not sure of what options there would be. Ms. Kruger is online. She might have thought about this in a little bit more depth already and maybe it will provide some more insight.
Through your worship, residential parking at Champaign was considered, or like a residential only type option was considered a few years ago when we first implemented our overnight parking fees for Champaign. And subsequently, there was a pilot project that was launched to allow for residents to apply for an exemption to those overnight fees. So that does provide some priority or some type of specialized option for residents. However, it doesn't guarantee them a spot. And it can be quite a busy boat launch. And as Mr. Thompson already mentioned, it isn't organized. So if people, depending on how the first few people park, it can be interesting down there. However, we have noticed this last summer, it isn't as busy as it has been in the past few years. So even on weekends when it is quite busy, we're finding there is still parking available. And that we're not at a point where people are not finding parking that we have noted. Wabano and some of our other boat launches definitely see that volume where parking space is at a premium. Champaign is still able to accommodate quite a few vehicles. So until now, we haven't considered just a sort of specialized parking for residents, as we do want the boat launches to be available for everybody. If volume were to increase in the future, that might be something we would have to look at to manage the parking in that area, though.
That I was going to actually add to that, that perhaps maybe this is something we could look at in the future as the waterfront is developed more and more. Thank you for that. My other question was for Mr. Kearns, and I know you talked about this a couple of weeks ago, and I'll just mention this again. In walking around town, I noticed there are some pretty mean-looking dead trees that look like they're ready to fall over. Do we have plans to remove some of those before they fall on people? I noticed in some areas that they're really heavy with telephone and hydro lines. So I guess I'm looking at this as a safety thing as well as proper aesthetics. Do we have a plan to move forward in removing these dead trees?
Through your worship. So certainly as those trees of concern are identified, staff will assess them. Anything in close proximity to power lines will be the responsibility of Lakeland, who we contact as well to remove them. Our staff cannot remove them if they're within striking distance, perhaps, of the wires. So anytime they're identified, staff will prioritize them for removal depending on location as well. Sometimes it's difficult to know which property the tree is located on. And we had some discussions about this previously as well. So we undertake kind of that investigation first off. But if it is close to the wires, we talk to Lakeland and they schedule the removal of those trees.
Okay, thanks very much.
Any other questions, staff? Councillor Keith?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Cairns, I'm concerned we had the microsurfacing done on Bowes and Church Street, but I notice when one drives their vehicle on that street, if they happen to go over a manhole, they get a drop. So what's happening there? Because my car says, ouch.
Through your worship, so actually Mr. Benaza and I spoke about this again this morning. We're speaking to the contractor. I will say not every manhole cover is an issue, but there are some that are definitely require some work. So we're going to be speaking directly to the contractor to rectify those.
Councillor Borneman?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Cairns, I believe I recall discussion regarding potential traffic controls at Forest and George Street when the new apartment building in there was completed. It appears to be reaching full occupancy. Are we, and there are no traffic controls there, and I know there are sightline issues. Are we still entertaining that possibility, or what is our plan in that respect?
Through your worship. So you are correct. That was part of the planning process. I think when the application was initially received, there were some comments regarding the potential for increased traffic controls. We have discussed some options. I know some folks have said four-way stops are not particularly recommended, especially in very low volume side streets where you've got one street meeting. So we can look at some other options. There is a potential to have no left turn, which may not be very popular for those coming out of George Street, but it is a traffic control measure that would alleviate some of the concerns with the sight line, because the sight line issues are not necessarily to the right, obviously. When you're making that left turn across traffic, I think is where the majority of the concern would come from. So we'll look at that internally. I'll speak with Mr. Rand too. There were some recommendations, I think, through the planning process, so we can reevaluate those and perhaps come back to council for with some recommendations on improving the traffic controls in that area.
Thank you. I would hope that we get to that before the winter season sets in, because I think the traffic in that area, I think everyone's more vulnerable in a snowstorm.
Through your worship, just on that, you're correct, and we will get to it quickly. And the winter is actually one of the other concerns on particularly traffic heading towards George Street. If they're forced to stop on that hill in a winter condition, it's so all of those things are being assessed in terms of what we'll bring back for council's consideration.
Councillor Ashford?
This is going to sound a bit like a crazy one, but there's a new Netflix special called Crazy Chimps. And it's from the same people who made the Tiger King that was so popular when everyone was locked in their house at COVID. And these chimps, it's pretty horrible what happens when one of these chimps get too big and attack a human. So I wanted to, I'm letting out the secret that my wife and I have been watching this, but I wanted to get an update on our exotic animal control bylaw and where it's at. Because when we first proposed that, it didn't seem like a big deal to me. But now that I've seen some video of this in action, it's pretty terrible, and I think we might need to expedite it a bit.
Ms. Kruger?
Through your worship, I haven't forgotten about the exotic animal bylaw. We did discuss that earlier this year. And I have been reviewing other municipalities. And it is something that has had some changes over the past few years from what maybe was previous, because probably of shows such as the one you're watching that have really brought it to light. But a draft is definitely being worked on at this point. So we will hopefully see something at council this fall that will address those concerns.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, follow up?
And a second question.
Oh, okay, all right.
I just had a question too from the budgeting perspective. If we do not use the 350,000 that's been set aside from our allotment of infrastructure money from the province for the bridge, what happens to that 350,000?
So the OSIF funding that we receive is for core infrastructure. So that funding is prioritized yearly through the budgeting process. So it would get reallocated to important projects that are like more pressing as we use that funding first before other dollars generally.
Okay. Councillor Boleski?
Thank you, Your Worship. I guess this is for Mike. The fitness trail behind the fitness trail behind McNabb's Lumber there. We've had a couple of people complain that they're falling into some of the ruts that are back in there. Can we get a machine in and level it up a wee bit? They're riding bikes and they've fallen off their bike because of falling into a rut. And I've had 2 or 3 people tell me about it.
Through your worship, certainly. I'll look into that tomorrow. First thing, we can address that. That's not an issue.
And maybe 3 or 4 council meetings ago, I requested that we look into contacting, I believe it's CP, wanting to possibly get permission to paint the concrete structures that are under the trestle. I'm just wondering how their response is coming to that. Has there been a letter sent out to them, or have we got any response from them, or?
Through your worship, I have not. I do have to admit, we've been focused on our other rail safety project with CP recently, but that's certainly something I can do as early as tomorrow as well. Reach out. We've had some good communications recently with CP that look encouraging, with some new staff that we haven't engaged with before. So I can certainly do that as early as tomorrow.
Thank you. I'd like to see us get permission, because I think it could become a community thing. Not the town doing it so much as the community getting involved as a whole, and suggesting what should be on it. His worship suggested possibly a lumberjack on one of them, and things like that we should be putting on, and maybe get community involved in it. So the sooner the better. Great.
If I could ask your worship, just to make sure I'm clear on what we're requesting, is it the concrete portions of the trestle that we're discussing in terms of painting? Is that, I just want to make sure I'm clear on what we're
That's
requesting.
correct.
Okay.
It's kind of shabby looking now, whenever we do the concrete portion of it, get it painted up. And
Okay.
that, it's a little too high for most of us, but yeah. That's
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Councillor Keith?
Yes, thank you. 2 questions, follow up, and one has to do with Mr. or Councillor Baleski's question. He indicated about whatever, the bicycles falling into ruts. Well, my concern is, besides the bicycles falling into ruts, is the bicycle or the cyclist just falling right off into the river, because I noticed more recently with walking with other people, that was the concern when the water, especially there's times the water's running heavier along there, but there's no fencing there. And it just seems to me that for liability issues that we really should have a fence on the water side. So I'm wondering that's my one question, and one more.
Through you, your worship, I mean, it's certainly something that we can explore.
Mhm.
There is some infrastructure in along the river, some pretty critical infrastructure from the town's perspective, as well as ownership of the lands will be something we'll have to investigate. As Lakeland or Bridge Generation, perhaps, I'm not sure which affiliation, does own land there that we perhaps enjoy traversing. So we can engage and ask those questions. It may be something that would require significant maintenance over time as well along the river. So that's just something that I would like council to just be aware of.
Well, thank you in respect to that, but like I said, there's areas there you could easily drop off. But the second question is, I'm wondering if we've had any progress, and that had to do with examining where it's Rosetta, and now James becomes William Street there. Has that been examined yet to see if we can have a 4-way stop? Because I have had somebody again advise me just about got hit. So I don't know why a 4-way stop couldn't be tried, but advise, please.
Through your worship, I mean, certainly I would suggest if it's something that council wants to pursue, the safest thing to do would perhaps be to engage a traffic engineer for a complete study and professional opinion. I can say from staff's perspective in checking the geometric design manual and all of the various traffic control manuals, it does not fit the warrant for a 4-way stop. It is a skewed intersection. And I think there would be fear that, again, low volumes from cross streets can sometimes lead to folks not paying attention to 4-way stops eventually. I would also suggest, again, that I think my own personal opinion and professional opinion, reduced speed, reduced travel speed by vehicles is the single biggest contributor to road safety. So, and I think that's been well studied as well. Now, I understand that simply reducing speed limits does not encourage the same behavior, but actual reduced travel speeds by vehicles does increase road safety.
Yes.
Thank you. So if my follow-up would be, another thought has come to me is often it seems to me there's more difficulty when there's vehicles parked close to that intersection. Has that been examined as maybe that would be an easier solution? Because when there are vehicles parked closer to the section, it is very hard if you're on Rosetta trying to make a left turn.
Through your worship, Councillor Keith, you're absolutely correct. Reduce sight lines, reduce reaction time, all of those sorts of things. So we do pay attention to sight line triangles. It would be a reduction in parking in the area. Perhaps that's a small price to pay for increased sight lines, but that's certainly something that could be considered. We could take a closer look at that intersection, perhaps with Ms. Kruger as well, and see what what might be easily achieved from that perspective, if that's so desired.
Okay, Councillor Keith.
So shall I move that direction, or can I assume that will be done?
Through your worship, from our perspective, we'll certainly go through the process and report back.
Okay, all right, good. That all the questions for right now? Oh, Councillor McDonald. Okay.
Yes, thank you, Worship. I guess speak for Mr. Thompson, perhaps. There's been an increased number of coyote sightings in town, particularly Hillcrest area. Just wondering if there's anything that can be done to deter them coming into town. I know people feeding the deer probably leave them in, but there seems to be a pack of 30 of them that kind of circle around the town, and I'm just wondering, it's becoming a real issue. I'm just wondering if there's anything that can be done.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm going to defer this one as well to Ms. Kruger. She's in the hot spot tonight, so might as well keep her going.
Through your worship, for sure addressing garbage in town in the sense of residents keeping their garbages, secure in a container. Definitely not feeding other wildlife, because the unintended consequence is often, the ones you don't want to show up, not necessarily the ones that you were hoping to observe. Managing all of that on your own property, ensuring that we are not attracting them. Having said that, coyotes do access urban settings, and do find that, often we provide, open areas that make for good hunting ground for them, such as park areas and whatnot. So it is one of those things that does tend to happen, and we see them. We could certainly look at adding some education to our website. We do tend to direct the public to the MNR, as they do manage wildlife, obviously across the province. But we could look to adding some education on our website, just so that residents could access that information there. There is obviously general deterrence, and most of that revolves around keeping, any type of food sources, be it pet food, garbage, bird feeders, whatnot, kept and maintained, so that we're not bringing those animals in close proximity to public as much as we can.
Great, thank you. And I have one more follow-up for Ms. Kruger. We spoke about this a little bit before, about the 5 parking spaces at the post office that are occupied by the taxi company. And if it's not being utilized like it had been in the past, as we don't have a lot of nightlife after 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night, possibility of freeing up some of those parking spaces for public use.
Through your worship, it is something I've had an opportunity to discuss with the taxi company. From their perspective, they do still use the spaces to a certain degree, but I think there's an opportunity that perhaps we could reduce the number, or look at if a different location would make sense. I know in our discussions, we, discussed that the reason they were there before obviously was nightlife as well as having a dispatch in the downtown. So I do think there's an opportunity to perhaps free up a few parking spaces by perhaps maintaining a few for taxis, but not maybe not the number that are currently there.
Great, thank you.
Councillor McCann?
Just to follow up on the coyotes again, and I think maybe we talked about this before and it's not possible, but is it possible that the MNR could become involved to trap Wiley and all his friends and relocate them another part of the territory somewhere? If they travel in packs, eventually you're going to get most of them, I suppose, and I imagine then they would. But I'm just wondering if that's something that's possible.
Through your worship, I won't speak on behalf of the MNR because I'm not sure if that is something that they would consider. We could reach out to them. It's not something that I have heard of happening most often. They do very much promote learning to live in harmony with wildlife. It's happening more and more as obviously cities get bigger, municipalities grow, that wildlife does figure out how to work their way into our towns. And so often that cohabitation is really sort of the tagline or the promotion that they're putting out there with their education versus relocation. But I can reach out to some of our MNR contacts in town. They might have some insight as far as just population and movement and what's sort of going on. So they might have a little bit more information about that.
I know you have a lot on your plate, but I think that would be very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I think Ms. Johnson, correspondence, please.
So the first item of correspondence is from the Parry Sound Area Founders Awards, or the Parry Sound Area Founders Circle, I should say, regarding the awards application now open. There is application information on Tuesday, September 24th from 5:30 to 6:30 at Trestle Brewing. So anyone interested in applying for the award and wanting more information can attend that. And the deadline for the application is October 31st. And on their website would be all the information, application information, etc. The next item of correspondence is from downtown Parry Sound. With appreciation to Mayor and Council for supporting the staff recommendation to release an RFP for the operation of Big Sound Marina to a qualified operator, for approval to fund moving the pump house to Big Sound Marina, and most importantly, to take over management of the town dock after the current lease expires in 2025. The next item is from Dr. T.J. Henderson. It's an email that was sent to all members of council and some staff regarding active transportation, and through active transportation, promoting of safer streets. Dr. Henderson also had significant attachments on various aspects of active transportation and safer streets, and that was all circulated to Mayor and Council as well. The next item is from Mary Jane Zissoff of Trilogy of Art, sending appreciation to Mayor and Council for installing the plaque, the dedication plaque at Yvonne Williams Park. Ms. Zissoff also then included some information from the latest magazine of the Stained Glass Association of America, which featured contributions of Yvonne Williams to stained glass and that heritage. Now, the next item are letters of, I'm just going to correspondence lined up. So the next item were a series of letters of opposition to removal of the Fitness Trail Bridge. There were 50 letters received that were individual letters that came into the town, and another 190 at the time that the agenda was circulated on Friday that were sort of like form letters with additional comments made by members of the public. Another 7 letters were received today that were circulated to mayor and council. Then the next batch of letters was the public information that was received in response to the town's invitation through its website to comment on the future of the fitness trail. There were 147 responses. And as Mr. Simmons says, the vast majority of those were in support of maintaining the trail bridge, or at least remove opposition to removal of it. And those are the items of correspondence.
Thank you very much. Next are deputations, and we have one deputation tonight, and that's from Krista Holmes, and it's about welcome in 3 languages on town signage. Welcome, Ms. Holmes. Yeah. There you go.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor McGarvey, and welcome. Thanks for having me. And there's many of you that I do know, but for those that don't, just a quick introduction. I am Krista Holmes. I am a resident of Carling Township, and I am here, and a former federal employee and a current employee of the Near North District School Board. I am here after making the same deputation to the Township of Carling, which is where I reside, after a unanimous decision at their council meeting back in June. Was suggested through their CAO that I would make my way through the rest of the West Parry Sound area in hope that if we had similar support, the support would be, the request would go to the government of Ontario with all of the West Parry Sound municipalities at the same time, rather than a bunch of single requests. So that's the reason for this. So it's the exact same presentation I made before, but just slightly modified to show what I was hoping for the town of Parry Sound. How do I go down if the screen is on the bottom? Okay, I'm just going to scroll and hope. There we go. So I won't repeat the land acknowledgement, but I did get that from Rebecca ahead of time. So it is nice. Everybody that I've been chatting with has their own land acknowledgement. And as we know, as we move toward truth and reconciliation in our province and in our town, it's really important that we are acknowledging that. So the reason that this came about actually for me, I have a lot of experience working as a federal municipal, or as a federal employee, then municipal, and now in the school board. And we were at a family hunt camp in Manitouwadge up north. And as we were driving home, it really surprised me that every sign that I saw on the highway said, welcome, bonjour, anani. And then it stopped at French River. And it kind of boggled me because I know how rich the area of West Parry Sound is with all the different First Nations that we have. And so I kind of sat on it for a little bit, and then eventually I thought, you know what, I really have to do something about this. Every time I drive from Sudbury here, it always comes into mind, like, why don't we have that? Why does it stop at French River? Why don't we have it in Parry Sound? So the logical place for me to start was at Carling Township. And I'm hoping that by having this conversation that you will consider the same thing as well. I don't know the exact wording because everyone does say or spell a little bit differently, and you'll see that in a second by the signage, but it's just something that I wanted to share. So we'll go to the next one. So there's just 2 examples. So you see there is different spelling and different salutations depending on where you are. So bienvenue, welcome, and ani, and then welcome. I don't even know how to pronounce it, bindengen and bienvenue. And so brought to my attention when I was doing some research, actually with Tony Clement, having a quick chat about how to go about this topic. He said, well, I hope you make sure to bring up that Ontario now recognizes 3 languages, official languages. So it's always been French and English, as you know, and more recently has, we now recognize Indigenous. So to me, it seems like a no-brainer that we should be adding that in West Parry Sound. And I hope that you guys will feel the same. This is my little example. I am by no means a graphic designer at all, but I did I grabbed the old Parry Sound sign that I know we're very excited now has reached 7,000. And then the current Town of Parry Sound sign that I know you have, which doesn't look to have as many opportunities to have some sort of signage below it. But I think at some point, if we were all approaching the municipalities at the same time, whether it be the same signage, something that would meet from a branding perspective, each municipality's signage, but just to get an idea of what it is we want to say. And then, of course, talk to those area First Nations to make sure that we're spelling Ani the way they would spell it. Ani is spelled differently in Wata than it is in Moose Deer, than it is in Dokis, than it is in Wissahickon. So to have the right people at the table as well when you had the conversation to see what that sign would look like. So that is my presentation. Are there any questions about it?
Any, Councillor Keith?
Well, it's more of a comment than a question, but I guess I do have one when I think about it, question. I saw previously, there was a logo and the Indigenous logo, the orange one, and I'm wondering the symbols, where you got those symbols from. Like, is that an international? Yes, for the heart there. Yes.
I took it from one of the Every Child Matters, just a website. So I don't know specifically who designed it.
Okay.
Or if it is specific to Ontario, but it was good for my slideshow.
Oh, okay. I'm glad to hear that
It
because
balanced it out. Yeah.
what I was going to say, because I've been going down when there's a cruise ship and welcoming people. The economic department was supportive of us having a sign, and the signs that we went through for welcoming people were all 3 languages, and there is an international sign for Indigenous people. So we had actually 2 different Indigenous logos. So one is in respect to the Anishinaabe here in our local area, besides the international one. So I do recognize there is some research that was done besides checking the language. So I can certainly see the benefits of what you're suggesting here for all of us to be consistent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Councillor McDonald?
Your worship, is this something that the town would have to go to the province to change on the highway signs, or is it MTO?
It sounds like it's MTO from what I gather, speaking with Kevin. So I think it is, as I kind of said at the start, that we would have to go to MTO, but then collectively, if all the West Parry Sound areas agreed, rather than doing a bunch of one-off requests, if we went through, hey, here we are, we all want to do this sign, what does that look like? And then, like I said, whether it's from a branding perspective for each municipality, but I do believe it's the MTO.
Great. I think it's a great idea for sure.
Anyone else?
Oh.
Okay.
Miigwech for your time.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. Reports. I'll start with Councillor Keith tonight.
Thank you. Okay, there was a few things that I did, so we'll get it together. Okay, first of all, Mr. Mayor, fellow councillor, staff, and public, since the last meeting, I attended the Council of Adjustment meeting, and 3 applications there were approved. I have continued for the past 2 months of going one-on-one, doing the Waterfront Advisory Committee survey, and also presenting cards to people who may be interested in completing that survey online, because we have a hybrid approach. September 3rd was to be the cutoff there. I attended the Sargent's Cement Company's open house, and I was really impressed of all the equipment and how the technology, how really up to date they are. To think they even load the cement truck actually within the building, that to me was something besides seeing the whole process. And I think it was really great for them to make a 50,000 donation to the Wellness and Pool Committee. I attended the grand opening of the Parry Sound Friendship Center, and that was quite a very educational, and they certainly have done a lot of work on that building. building. And I also attended the International Day for Overdose, and the people who have been lost in our community, and the concern that certainly we have in our community of such a loss and not wanting to have any more loss there. And finally, I attended today, this evening before our closed council meeting, and that was in respect to the raising of the cancer awareness flag. So that was my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ashford?
Thank you. With Councillor Keefe, I was also at the Committee of Adjustments meeting, and progress was made there. In addition, we met for the West Parry Sound Pool and Cultural Center meeting that night. In fact, the meetings overlap slightly, and we learned that the town only has one Zoom account. So it was kind of a fun little experience for us. Then yeah, remember that? And then next going forward, there was the AMO conference for Ontario municipalities. So Councillor Keith, myself, and the mayor, and Mr. Harris all traveled up there and had a lot of good learning and networking, and opportunity to speak with different ministries and different ministers, and all the folks involved in all those things, to make sure that the ratepayers for the town of Parry Sound's concerns and voices heard, and that they know that we are a group of people that work together and are looking for the betterment of our community and Ontario as a whole. And I would say it was a pretty successful few days to do that. And then finally, there was the butterfly release for Hospice West Parry Sound. I was very grateful. I'm on the board at Hospice, and I was very grateful to see that the mayor came to that as well. And it was another wonderful opportunity. We had Domino's donate, Pizzaville donate free pizza for everyone attended, and Whispering Rivers did the orchestra. It was a pretty great event and pretty touching for everybody. My two girls, there's a second annual, first annual, they had a heck of a time figuring out about these butterflies, but they're a little bit older this time, and they did a much better job figuring out how to get these butterflies released. So that's everything for my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bileski?
Thank you, your worship. On August the 15th, we had a special meeting for the Belvedere management group. We're trying to get proceeding with this, the 22-bed extension that's been proposed. And we need to be shovel ready and have a definite plan by a certain date in order to get the, I think it's $35 a bed monies that the government's going to give us. So we have to be at a certain point by then. So we discussed, we have a site, we're discussed for a site superintendent or a site manager, but anyway. And that was on the 15th. On the 26th, I attended the Belvedere Finance Committee. I remember that. And finances are pretty good. The hiring of outside staff for nursing staff is down quite a bit, so it's keeping us within the proposed budget. In fact, we have a little bit of a surplus because of that, and it's mainly because we're not hiring contract workers. And on August the 28th, again, we had a board of management meeting with Belvedere, and it was basically business as usual. And that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McCann?
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, fellow councilors, staff, and public. Tuesday, the 20th of August, I had a wonderful opportunity to board the Pearl Mist to meet the staff and enjoy a tour. I attended with Jeff Tom, of course, our new economic development officer for Parry Sound, and Bob Corrigan, our harbor master. It was a firsthand experience to witness the staff's hospitality. Parry Sound is one of their favorite ports. It has been not only a relief, but a remarkable conclusion to the quandary of not being able to berth at the town dock. And I want to say thank you to staff and the engineers and everyone involved in finding a solution for this. I was informed on Sunday afternoon that Parry Sound is indeed on their schedule for next year's cruise season, so we look forward to that. We also learned about the economic benefit in hosting the Pearl Mist over its visits this year, and in previous years, I found out that the staff spent some $700 in town on Sunday for their own needs. My wife and I were on the town dock at that time when we noticed some Pearl Mist staff returning on foot with 3 large pizzas, and I was almost ready to turn around and follow them. It looked pretty good. So that is good. I also want to take this opportunity. You've heard me talk from time to time about West Parry Sound Community Support Services and our fundraiser in collecting redeemable cans and bottles. I want to thank people for making their contributions to our program. We have drop-off bins at Sobeys and at the McFarland Transfer Station. Over the last couple of years, since we started doing this under the auspices of community services, we have made just under $11,000 to this point at this point in time. Archipelago shares the McFarland Transfer Station, and I want to encourage people who are bringing their garbage and recyclables to ask them to separate them and put the redeemables in our own bins so that we can take them off and turn them into money so that we can put those funds towards things like Meals on Wheels, transportation, and such. Over the summer, I noticed that, well, not so much the summer, but the last couple of years, my experience was to dig out a lot of redeemables out of the recyclable side that was deemed to be shipped off. So lost opportunity, lost money there. So if you can think to do that, that would be much appreciated. I want to and talking about community engagement, I want to congratulate everybody that got involved with coming forth and with great passion to save the Wabano Street Bridge. Whether you're for it or against it, is the fact that we had a whole community that really rallied, engaged themselves with such passion, and it shows they really do care about where they live and play. And I want to congratulate them on making such a fine effort. And finally, the kids are back to school this week, whether it's kindergarten or post-secondary levels. We wish the students all the best, and I hope this doesn't fall on deaf ears, but I hope that motorists will take some extra caution out there. Everybody's always in a rush, running yellow lights, even red lights, passing and such. Slow down. You're not going to get anywhere too quickly anyways. Save some wear and tear on your vehicles and save some lives. And so do drive carefully, watch for the kids, and good luck to the students. And that's my report.
Thank you. Councillor Borneman.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening, everyone. On August 24th, I attended the Biosphere Sustainable Transportation outing at the Stocky Center. Paddle, sail, and of course, a number of EVs. Special thank you to Peter Scully, who had a low-speed 6-passenger EV on site that I got to drive around downtown for quite a while. It's a bit of an eye catcher, people waving and pointing, hopefully at the vehicle, not at me. But it would be an ideal, in my view, addition to the waterfront as a to shuttle people around in Parry Sound. Councillor Bileski reported on meetings that seem to be coming fast and furious that Belvedere, the province's offered us some money, but they're giving us an awful run for the money in order to collect it. The hoops seem to keep coming. I want to thank our lifeguard team that ended their services this past Friday. you know, for a few years it was touch and go whether we would be able to recruit enough young folks to provide that service. But this year's crop did an excellent job. Ms. McNamara and her cohort should be congratulated on that. Councillor McCann commented, I would say, especially drivers be digital and aware of school buses stopping and lights flashing. That it's not a suggestion that we stop when we see those things. It's the law. And finally, Your Worship, I want to congratulate and wish good luck to Andrew Gognovic. Andrew is off to Victoria, BC this week, where he'll be competing as part of Team Ontario at the Indigenous Games as a golfer. It's really quite an achievement, I think, for anyone to reach a national level in any kind of activity. So good luck, Andrew. All the best. And that's my report this evening.
Thank you. Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Your Worship. August 14th, I attended the Downtown Business Association monthly meeting. There was talk of some concerns with the Tuesday night car show, cars parking in the downtown a little too early, causing issues for some of the businesses. There was also some talk about outside businesses selling at downtown events perhaps should pay a vendor fee, and wrap up of Summer in the Sound, which was great, well attended, and there might be possibly even looking at a different date to make it even better for next year. August the 19th, I met with the new Town of Parry Sound Economic Development Officer, Jeff Tom, to discuss regional stakeholders and assets to the town. Jeff is eager to market the town and showcase all we have to offer, so we look forward to working with him. August the 20th, Pearl Mist was in port and resumed mooring at Town Dock, much to the delight of crew and passengers. Kudos to senior leadership, port security and engineering firms for finding a viable solution for returning the Pearl Mist to the Town Dock. August the 23rd, I was back again on the Pearl Mist, this time on board to get a tour and lunch. Met the crew and some passengers, much like Councillor McCann had stated. And it was mentioned at this particular visit that they came ashore to purchase supplies and spent in excess of $1,600 at various grocery stores in the LCBO. So it seems to be a common occurrence when they come to dock and are able to move about freely to resupply, restock, and head out of port. August 28th, I met with Peter Scully regarding the GEM E6 electric six-seater he brought to the Sustainable Transportation event at the Stocky Center. Talks of regarding if the town might find value in purchasing a couple of these vehicles to micro-transport people around town to various locations. August the 29th, attended a grand reopening of the Parry Sound Friendship Center. It was a very well-attended event, which saw enough participants to encircle the building, holding hands, performing a cleansing ceremony. The renovated building offers a small Aboriginal crafts and paintings retail shop, lots of office space, large banquet hall, healing space upstairs, capable of holding 120 people, and a good-sized basement room with brand new commercial kitchen. There's also an elevator that accesses all 3 levels. August the 30th, attended an opening of the new playground at McTier Public School. Parent committee has spent years fundraising for this, but was well short of the $100,000 price tag. So the Shania Twain Foundation and the Mitch Marner Assist Foundation stepped up and put up the remaining funds to see this through. My son and myself were fortunate enough to meet Mitch Marner and get a photo taken with him to cap up the day, where I also met the mayor and a couple of the councillors from the township of Georgian Bay. And as Councillor Borneman stated, I'd also like to thank the Wabano Beach Aquatic team. They finished a successful summer season, and kudos to Ms. McNamara and her team in revitalizing the lifeguard and swim lesson program coming out of COVID. End of my report.
Okay, thank you. Council staff and public. August 13th, I attended a SNAP special AMO MOU meeting that the province called. Then August 14th was a pool committee meeting, update on the project, and yes, that was rather interesting on the Zoom situation or whatever. So, I mean, we certainly try to make sure that the open portions of the meeting are there for the public to, you know, see and hear and that sort of thing, but we didn't realize we only had one account, so it yeah, anyway, we waited, yeah. August 17th, at an AMO board meeting in Ottawa before the AMO conference started. August 18th was an AMO board meeting, and we had a presentation from Hydro One. Now, that was extremely timely because the power happened to go out in Parry Sound and whatever, and part of, I guess, the Foley area, because two main feeder lines had crashed or something had gone wrong. So one of the gentlemen that was there, I mentioned it to him, and he pulled it up on his phone and was tracking the progress for me so that if there were any real issues, I could get back or whatever to somebody here in Parry Sound. I know Lakeland Power was monitoring that as well because it feeds into their system. So it was interesting, and I certainly appreciated the Hydro One official for keeping tabs on it and maybe, you know, prodding just a little bit as well. So August 18th at 2 p.m. was the Ontario Small Urban Committee meeting, and the committee had an update on finances and a discussion on a meeting that we were supposed to have with the Minister of Attorney General. We also had Minister Calandra attend our meeting, Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, to discuss a number of issues: the landlord-tenant board, housing, and codes of conduct as well, which were codes of conduct are becoming quite an issue, and certainly the treatment of municipal employees and in general. So August 18th in the afternoon, the AMO conference started, and I would like to say, you know, thank you to Councillor Keith and Ashford and CAO Harris for being there. It was good to have others from Parry Sound to see and hear and everything that's going on at that conference. August 19th, Mr. Harris and myself and Councillor Ashford, Councillor Keith got the message just a little bit late, but she was in the hallway. We had a meeting with Minister Surma to discuss infrastructure funding and also being part of the process for the divestiture of the M&R base at the bottom of Bay Street. So it was a good meeting, and hopefully something good comes out of it. Some of the highlights: the Lieutenant Governor of Ontario, the Honorable Edith Dumont, introduced herself to the municipal representatives at the conference. Took in a number of sessions, and some of them were on the importance of fiscal sustainability in municipalities, partnering to drive local workforce and economic development. And the opening speaker, Andrew Coyne, certainly had a very intriguing and interesting conversation that he relayed to the audience there. August 24th, as Councillor Ashford mentioned, was the butterfly release for hospice fundraiser. That was really neat. You know, you make a donation, you get this package, and you open it up, and then a little piece of paper inside, and you open that, and there's a butterfly in there that you can let go, and it flies off wherever. But I thought that was really something nice that hospice did, and I hope they made some money off it. It was quite neat. And tonight, as Councillor Keith mentioned before council, there was flag raising for childhood cancer awareness. So we didn't have the key because it was locked in the safe, but the flag will go up tomorrow. But the appropriate people from Candlelight organization were there on hand as well. So that was good. And that's my report. So.
How do they put the butterfly in the envelope?
I have no idea how they do it. I really don't. It is very intriguing because it's laying in there just perfectly flat, and you open up it's like a cardboard triangle. You open that up, and then there's a piece of paper, like I say, inside. And then you open that piece of paper, and there's a butterfly, and away it goes.
I'll Google that.
I I don't know, but you would have to do it very carefully. Okay, item 911, moved by Councillor McCann, second by Councillor Borneman, that the September 3rd, 2024 report entitled Review of Operating Procedures with Respect to Site Alteration Matters be received for information purposes. Mr. Rand, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Thank you, Your Worship. I won't add too much. I have Allison Kruger here as well if there are any questions with regard to that information report. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Any questions on the report? Councillor Ashford?
Just, so I didn't understand it fully. How does this affect like a current Parry Sounder? Is this kind of going in future homes? Is this a situation where you have, you built your house 20 years ago, there was a site plan, your driveway's 4 inches to the right, and now, you know, you're out of, you're out of sync with what the rules, like, how does it all kind of work for what we want as a municipality?
Through your worship, this all sort of came about as there was some site alteration as part of a townhouse development. When we talked to the town solicitor and also through internal staff, we do have an existing property standards bylaw, and this bylaw is not intended to address natural landscaping, but rather things like excavation and pools and that sort of thing. So it sounds like with respect to any new excavations, and correct me if I'm wrong, Allison, but this specific situation, I guess, would be applicable for small scale residential where a site plan agreement is not required. And on this situation, as noted, there was an existing natural hazard that was, I guess, exacerbated, but when we analyzed the current bylaw regime, that there was really, it didn't really fall into that. It wasn't covered by the town bylaws, and we would look at all situations on a case-by-case basis moving forward.
Anything further? All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Item 931, moved by Councillor Borneman, second by Councillor McCann. Be it resolved that council accepts the asset management plan update in accordance with the town's strategic asset management policy and OREG 588/17 asset management planning for municipal infrastructure under the Infrastructure for Jobs and Prosperity Act 2015. Be it resolved that council directs staff to proceed with Phase 1 2024 OREG 588/17 compliant asset management plan and Phase 2 2025 proposed levels of service and 2025 OREG 588/17 compliant asset management plan PSD citywide at a total cost of $58,500 plus HST in an effort to expedite the advancement of the asset management plan update to meet regulatory requirements. Mr. Rand. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I thought you being there that all of a sudden you had something with that.
Okay.
Ms. Phillips.
So each year we provide a bit of an update to council on how the asset management plan is progressing. So a couple of those highlights are within the report, which include our asset management software has been enhanced to connect to GIS mapping data. So that's to help with prioritization of rehabilitation or replacement of assets. And that happened in connection with the work order project. We've also been doing some training, which was offered through Amp It Up 3.0 through MFOA and the Ministry of Infrastructure. And this is for planning on enhancing the levels of service through the next update of the plan. And this report recommends that we move forward with the 2024 regulatory requirements, which is enhancement of the asset management plan to include non-core assets such as vehicles and parks and recreation, land improvements and those sorts of things, where we identify metrics and technical and customer focused metrics of the services that we're providing, and then record that through the update of the asset management plan for those assets. And then into 2025, those metrics for all assets will be used to identify through stakeholder engagement proposed levels of service. And then through that part of the project, a 10-year forecast will be provided, which will connect the asset management plan with what the town proposes to do, and hopefully close a bit of the infrastructure gap through the desired levels of service through the development of that plan. It's pretty complicated.
But we got a plan.
Yeah, we have a plan to get there, which will take about 12 to 14 months. And we propose completing the rest of that with PSD Citywide, who's the provider of our software, and have been helping with the first part of the updates to our plan, which were provided in August 2022.
Good.
Okay.
Okay. Any questions for Councillor Ashford?
I also felt this was a little bit over my head in reading it. So just, I don't know if this, I think I might be looking too micro on this, but when I see the proposed levels of services and things like that, what's going through my head is we need more garbage cans, because when you walk your dog, you end up carrying the poop bag too long, right? So I get this complaint from ratepayers all the time that there's never a garbage when I need it, and I don't know if there's a study of dogs or how all this works, right? But we're talking about some sort of increased level of service in that. So I don't want to miss the opportunity to note the garbage can layout and plan for that. But at the same time, is this a part of that at all? Or it sounds like maybe phase 2, we'll be looking at this in the future, or how does the kind of a practical problem that we're having fit into this?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, so that detailed example would be an example of a proposed level of service where we would be increasing our level of service. But being that the asset management plan is such a large document, as time goes on, we become more and more focused. So this time around, we'll enhance the data a little bit further from the 2022 plan. And it's a continuous improvement activity where each time we do it, we'll get a little bit more detailed and a little bit more focused on maybe specific things where that might be very detailed, but it could come out in the stakeholder engagement that people want more garbage cans per se, which is a fixture and part of the plan. Yeah.
Councillor Keith?
So basically, as I understand it, is that we're regulated. We need to do an asset management plan. So though we see figures here, financial figures of the anticipated costs, those numbers could have been a little bit different. It just depends on what your needs are. Those are what it's expected are going to be the costs involved, right?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. So thus far, municipalities have really focused on the assets that they have right now and simply maintaining those assets. But the next deadline, which is in 2025, municipalities are supposed to focus on what they propose to do and include all assets that are within the plan based on what they'd like to have.
So the bottom line still is that it's regulated and we can't really say, no, we don't want to do it. We have to follow through with the plan. And so this is the approval tonight of that plan.
Yes, that's correct. And to secure funding dollars from provincial and federal sources, we're required to also meet those requirements.
This is a step that the province and the federal government have been looking at for quite a long time. And I totally get it and understand it because it justifies your need. And there are a number of municipalities out there that drag their feet on this and actually they're doing themselves harm by doing so. Being in step like we are gives us a much better presentation when we're applying for grants and that sort of thing. So it's well done. Thank you, Ms. Phillips, for the work on this.
My pleasure.
Anything further? All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Okay, moved by Councillor Keith and seconded by Councillor Ashford, whereas the Rotary and Algonquin Regiment Waterfront Trail has always been of strategic importance to the town of Parry Sound and its ratepayers. Whereas the town council of the day had the wisdom to acquire the former railway property, whereas the property extends from Champagne Street Boat Launch to the Salt Dock Road as set out on the in the attached map. Whereas the railway property has been an infrastructure corridor in support of the local economy. And whereas the use of the property as a public infrastructure corridor continues to be important, whereas the Rotary and the Algonquin Regiment Fitness Trails significance to Parry Sound's history and is named after the soldiers of the Algonquin Regiment. And whereas physical activity is essential to the mental and physical well-being of all individuals, and whereas the Rotary and the Algonquin Regiment Fitness Trail is a tourist attraction and a driver of economic activity in Parry Sound, and whereas the Rotary and the Algonquin Regiment Fitness Trail is accessible and enjoyed by all members of the community, and whereas the town council is supportive of the Rotary and Algonquin Regiment Fitness Trail remaining in public ownership, now therefore be it resolved, the council reaffirms its intent that the Rotary and the Algonquin Regiment Fitness Trail remain in public ownership and that the surplus land bylaw be amended to make reference to this resolution. Councillor McCann.
So two questions, actually. First, I have one for Mr. Rand, but right now for Mr. Harris. I had some trouble with the wording in this one with regards to the entire trail being a corridor for infrastructure. You explained it well to me and made it clear to me that this is not the trail isn't a free-for-all, that we council still gets to make a decision on what and where might be excavated or dug up and pipes buried or whatnot. And that had concerned me because I think many people in the community want to see the trail left untouched. So could you, for the benefit of the public, and explain what you did to me, explain it the way you did to me before council? And then I'll have a question for Mr. Rand.
Certainly, through the mayor, the fitness trail, I mean, everybody likes to walk on it, but it is a piece of infrastructure. We just heard from the Director of Finance about municipal assets and infrastructure, and the fitness trail is on that list of infrastructure that the town has. There's inspection requirements, there's maintenance and repairs and work that needs to be done on it regularly. So it in itself is a piece of infrastructure, and that's why it's referred to as infrastructure. The piece I think you're talking about, the possibility as an infrastructure, not only to move people from one part of the community to the next, but also underneath the trail for water and sewer conveyance. Right now, a lot of the conveyance for water and sewer pipes is underneath roads. It's on private property. It's on rights of ways. It's in, lots of different places. Currently, there is servicing to the lighthouse development that's under a portion of the trail. The town has plans on the southern end of the trail to put servicing to support a new pump station that'll improve servicing and increase capacity in the area. So, but all the time, the asset, the trail is, when it's refurbished, is put back into as good or better state. I think that's been the experience over the years. When this particular resolution, the intent was to provide assurance to the public that the council isn't interested, isn't contemplating selling any portion of the trail. And if you're looking for a reason for this council and future councils to keep that in mind, to keep it in public ownership, referencing in the resolution that it's for public infrastructure is an extremely good reason to keep it in public infrastructure. If it was a piece of land that didn't have infrastructure associated with it, it would be an easy, not a not an easy decision, but it would be easier to make a decision if somebody wanted to buy a portion of it. But when you've got municipal infrastructure involved or the potential for it, that's a compelling case to keep it in public ownership. And I think that it enhances the end resolution. The whereases where we're referring to infrastructure are just kind of background commentary that lead to the conclusion, this is an important piece, an asset, an important piece to keep in public ownership. And that was the reason it's referenced in there.
Okay, thank you for that. And a question I had for Mr. Harris, and he thought maybe that Mr. Rand could better answer it. Something like this, would this be something that you would embed in the official plan for the town?
Through your worship to Councillor McCann, certainly through the sale of public land, that is a public process. The official plan does reference a number of different sections, the importance of open space and trails to the community components of a complete community and that sort of thing. But to answer your question directly, there are some specific policies that do promote the expansion of the trail, and there are also policies which would prevent council from privatizing lands that contain trails or sell lands where a trail extension would be likely. And we are anticipating that these policies would be duplicated in the new official plan as well.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Councillor Ashford?
I think the concern that I had when I first read it, which Mr. Harris has actually really explained, is the intention when I put this forward and put it together was principally that the response from the bridge, people were clearly, this was becoming almost a mental health emergency for them, that they weren't understanding the processes that the town's going through, and they were having a very hard time dealing with the possibility that the bridge might be removed, that something that is so dear to them could be gone. And I think people hadn't really contemplated that. So when I read it, and I read now the addition of the word infrastructure, I would suspect it would have sparked the similar feeling in people that, here we got this, oh, okay, good, this trail's going to stay. And then when the words come out, the words are correct, and it is the infrastructure, and they're the proper words and better words than I could create. But that was kind of, I think, maybe where people's reaction is that they're worried that that particular term is associated with something negative. So I think you've explained it well, Mr. Harris, on what that word just means, trail, right? Like it's part of our infrastructure, it's that trail. So I'm still in support of this. And the whereas sections aren't what we're doing. What we're doing is the bottom part, right? So these are just matters of fact that are listed there. But is there anything else we can do to communicate this well so that anyone who's reading this after we're said and done is looking at it, we're understanding it. It's the technically correct, but someone who just picks up the paper, like we saw when we had our meeting today, people didn't quite understand what we were doing because they're not accustomed to it. Is there anything we can do to make sure that this is clear to folks that this resolution has nothing to do with, we're not putting pipes in the ground tomorrow or something on Fitness Trail?
Through the chair, I understand Councillor Ashford's question. I'm not sure what we could add. I think the bottom line, as you pointed out, the resolution doesn't reference infrastructure. It just says we're taking the step, council's taking the step of declaring this, that their intent not to sell it, and taking the extra step of actually making reference in the disposal of property bylaw. So anybody a year from now, 5 years from now, a different council, different staff, if that comes up that somebody's looking at selling a portion of the trail and you pull out the property disposal bylaw, there'll be a reference in there so it doesn't get lost in today's minutes. It'll be there forever. I think if people read it and focus on the last part, it's simply all that we're doing is making this aware that this is an important piece of the town, part of the history, and it shouldn't be sold, and it's the only piece of property that I know that'll be referenced in the bylaw, disposal bylaw. So I think that's pretty clear as to what council's intent is. And the whereas give that justification, because the first thing somebody's going to do when they read that disposal property bylaw would refer back to this resolution with the wording, and they'd see, yes, we understand why it's so important to keep it in municipal ownership.
Thank you, Mr. Harrison.
All right. I think something that's really important to mention right at the moment too is that, you know, when this whole thing started to come out about the bridge, was all of a sudden there was a rumor that we were selling the property that Sail Perry Sound was on. And that caused a lot of confusion to the people that organize Sail Perry Sound and look after the property and that sort of thing. You know, and I just wish sometimes people would stop making things up and creating rumors, because it only adds more aggravation and more angst to people in the community that cherish something. You know, Sail Perry Sound does a great job down there. All that's happening down there is they're renewing their lease, you know, which that's something that's coming to staff to deal with and will come to council. So, you know, they just, please. Councillor McCann.
Well, on the heels of Councillor Ashford's comments there, it's why I brought this up, is that I was concerned that it would be the Wild West, a free-for-all, that this meant or implied that tomorrow morning we're going to dig up the bridge and put pipes in the ground and do all kinds of stuff. I hope Sail Perry Sound is around for another 25 or 50 years from now. They do good stuff. But I just wanted to make it clear that, as it's been mentioned and stressed here tonight, that if something should come up where some sort of development requires some infrastructure installation down that way, council's still going to get a chance to look at it and vote on it, that we're not opening up the Wild West here.
Councillor Borneman.
Oh, I'm going to go back to a comment I made a couple of weeks ago when this first came up, and I'm not really clear yet. Fitness trail is kind of a generic term. I hope that means that we're including the trail north of the salt dock in that term, that we're not excluding that property from protection.
Well, that's the rugged fitness trail.
Through the mayor to Councillor Borneman, this resolution and a map attached and shows the fitness trail from Salt Dock Road essentially to the Champagne boat launch. So it doesn't make reference to the rugged shore.
I know. That would be a different resolution. It's not part of this particular one. If we want to create something with that, that's fine as well.
We should.
Councillor McCann.
Well, I think if Councillor Borneman is putting forth the motion, I certainly would second it, because we know that beyond the salt docks, that the town has the immediate property on the water. And I think as Councillor Ashford put forth, we're protecting the ownership of that. But yeah, maybe we need to have something on the books that states that we want to look at this a little bit more thoroughly.
So the direction from you two is that staff look at a similar resolution with regard to the rugged fitness trail. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Any discussion on that? All in favor? That's carried. Okay. Can we get back to the other one now? I shouldn't have done that, but because this had to be dealt with first, but anyway, it's done. I'm surprised I didn't get a point of order from Councillor Keith on that one, but anyway, anything further on this particular resolution? All in favor then? That's carried. Thank you. Yeah. There we go. Okay, whereas two exits off Highway 400 with the same name can cause confusion for visitors to the area and emergency response vehicles. Whereas a section of Parry Sound Drive has no municipal addresses assigned. Whereas roads that provide access to and from the 400 series highway are high visibility, whereas the significant exposure has commercial value. Whereas the new Recreation and Culture Center is currently undertaking a fundraiser campaign with Moose FM where monies raised by November 24th, 2024 will be matched up to $100,000. Whereas the renaming creates an opportunity to generate net proceeds for the new center. Now therefore be it resolved that staff be directed to issue an RFP for the renaming of the section of Parry Sound Drive set out in the report, and that the net proceeds from the renaming be donated to the new Recreation and Culture Center, and that this resolution be forwarded to the Parry Sound Area Chamber of Commerce, the Downtown Business Association, promoted through social media, the town's website, and other available opportunities. Discussion. Councillor McCann.
So I think this is a great idea. I was wondering, so just a further clarification on what this is all about, are we putting out some sort of a contest or a pay for bid on the idea of a name? What exactly does this look like for the public to participate in?
Through the mayor, we're hoping because Parry Sound Drive will have signage on Highway 400. That's going to generate interest, I think, predominantly from the business community. It could be others, but we've stated in the report that we think a minimum bid is 45,000 makes sense. And we're suggesting that we do an RFP. So we'd make an RFP available that kind of sets out the framework under which decisions are made. If someone, we're asking that if you're interested, the minimum bid is 45,000. You can obviously bid more. We hope people bid more. But from a business's point of view, you're going to have at least two signs coming north and two signs going south that say, ABC Drive or Street. So it could be your name, your business name, and we think that would generate some interest. The RFP, we want it to close in time that whatever we generate for proceeds from this venture, make it in to the match campaign that the fundraising team for the pool has organized. And monies raised between now and November 24th get matched up to $100,000. I don't know where we are in that campaign per se, but we wouldn't want to be short in having funds that could be matched. So we wanted to close in that before November 24th. Some of the things we've asked anybody that wants to put in a bid, if they should put in a bid with an alternate name. For some reason, if a name is submitted and there's already a name that's elsewhere in Parry Sound or West Parry Sound that's going to be confusing for emergency response, we can't accept that name. So if they provided an alternate in the event that there was a problem with the first suggestion, the MTO was also asked that we advise First Nation communities of any name changes. So we'll be doing that. And we want to get the RFP out as soon as possible, just to get as much interest out there and allow people as much time to respond as possible.
And the nice part of this is there's no addresses for anyone that needs to be changed. So
Exactly, yeah. So I'm waiting for someone to suggest Bobby Orr Drive.
it's going to be up to whoever answers and puts a bid in. Anyway, anything further on this one? No? All in favor then? And that's carried. Thank you. So moved by Councillor Ashford, second by Councillor Beleski, whereas Rail Safety Week is to be held across Canada from September 23rd to the 29th, 2024, whereas 229 railway crossing and trespassing incidents occurred in Canada in 2020. Okay. Whereas 229 railway crossings and trespassing incidents occurred in Canada in 2023, resulting in 66 avoidable fatalities and 39 avoidable serious injuries. Whereas educating and informing the public about rail safety, reminding the public that the railway rights of way are private property, enhancing public awareness of the dangers associated with highway rail grade crossings, ensuring pedestrians and motorists are looking and listening while near railways and obeying established traffic laws will reduce the number of avoidable fatalities and injuries caused by incidents involving trains and citizens. Whereas Operation Lifesaver is a public-private partnership whose aim is to work with the public, rail industry, governments, police services, media, and others to raise rail safety awareness. Whereas CN and Operation Lifesaver have requested Town Council adopt this resolution in support of its ongoing efforts to raise awareness, save lives, prevent injuries in communities, including our municipality. Therefore, the Council of the Town of Parry Sound hereby resolves to support National Rail Safety Week to be held from September 23rd to the 29th, 2024. Now, something also came from CPKC or whatever, and I happened to respond back because the understanding that we had understood was that CPKC hadn't signed off yet on the Isabella Street crossing. So I made sure that Mr. Kearns and other staff were also included on the email back to CPKC. And so Mr. Kearns has been digging into the reasons why the Isabella Street crossing CP hasn't responded. Mr. Kearns, maybe you can give an update on where we're at with that, and so hopefully we're actually moving quicker now.
Certainly, Your Worship. So in response to that correspondence, actually, we've had quite a bit of back and forth in the last week with this representative from CPKC, which has been encouraging. We're dealing with another issue along the rail line outside of the crossing at Isabella. So our understanding was that CP had received our engineering diagrams submission through a web portal submission. As soon as that correspondence started late last week, we've had more this week as well, with the understanding that CP will have the full engineering design layout in their hands by the end of this week, is what I've been assured. I will continue to follow up, and I will make sure to respond to all of council when we have that update by the end of this week. The project at the Isabella Street crossing has been complicated. It's complicated because of two railways and Transport Canada and the municipality who were responsible for the road portion of it. Railways also always take the stance that the road crosses their tracks. So we try and work with them as much as we can. CN and CPKC have two very different application processes. For whatever reason, they're not on the same page. It's not administered through Transport Canada. And anyway, so those are some of the hurdles that we're hopefully over this week. And they'll have that complete application. As far as we can tell, we've met all their engineering requirements for crossings, including sidewalks. The layout has been done. The realignment of that intersection is outside of the rail crossing, but it's integrated into the whole project because we can't do one without the other. So anyway, I will make sure I provide that update.
Thank you. Councillor Borneman?
again, I repeat myself every year saying that, you know, basically the railway is paying lip service to public safety issue. We see nothing and we hear nothing from them for 50 weeks, 51 weeks, and then we get something saying support rail safety, which we do wholeheartedly, but there appears to be pretty much a lack of effort on their end, at least at a local level, to do more than this. It's a social media campaign. There is no interaction in the schools or in the community. You almost feel that you're condoning of false advertising here by supporting this, but I'm not sure what other alternative we have. And I am glad to hear Mr. Kearns's comments with respect to the Isabella Street crossing, which should be an absolute no-brainer for anybody who is concerned with railway safety in a community like this. Mr. Mayor, I think going forward, the railways basically are a law unto themselves, and it's an issue that AMO should probably take up with the government to, negotiate a more equitable way of doing business with them, because I'm pretty sure that Parry Sound's not the only community that struggles, with issues with respect to roads crossing railways or the other way around, or in our case, pipes going underneath them and so on and so forth. We've been through that in a number of prior cases and now, and things that should be done almost overnight seem to take months of negotiation with them, which is just totally not fair.
No, I totally hear you. I know that there have been instances in the past where, AMO has looked at some of these particular issues and that sort of thing. Right now, I know that in Southern Ontario, there's a number of municipalities that are ganging up because it's an isolated sort of issue, but it has to do with drainage. And, the railways, it's tough because like you said, they're like a law unto themselves. And nothing's been changed as far as what the taxation is or whatever on the railway, whatever that runs through the municipalities in many, many years. If council desires, I mean, we can have a resolution put together that, is sort of a broad-based sort of community safety sort of resolution that makes sure that it could go to AMO, that it is, that railways are looking at public safety and the ways of doing it, that isn't costing the taxpayers any additional amount of money. But that is something to think about, because what AMO will deal with is something broad. Okay. And railway safety is a broad issue. So something could be looked at with regard to that, and I think sent to them and see what happens. Yeah. Anything further on Councillor Keith? And then
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I have a couple of comments. This resolution seems to me is referring to CN and Operations Lifesaver. So I don't see CP itself being mentioned here. And what I'm not clear on, so maybe I can get educated as well as the public, as it was questioned a few minutes ago, what does CPKC stand for? I'm guessing Canadian Pacific, but I could be wrong. What's the
Kansas
KC?
City. Kansas City.
Kansas City. So we're also USA. Thank you.
Yeah, it's now CPKC. Yeah. Actually, I can give you. Let's see. So the email from CPKC was they were writing to ask for our support to promote and make rail safety a priority in your community during Rail Safety Week, September 23rd to the 29th. One incident is too many, and CPKC is proud to support the efforts of Operation Lifesaver Canada to help stop track tragedies. Your municipality can participate in a number of ways. Engage on CPKC's social channels by liking, sharing, or retweeting our rail safety posts. Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, or X. Engage your community on social media. Encourage families to play the interactive CPKC rail safety video game aimed at teaching young children how to stay safe around tracks and trains. Review and promote rail safety using this toolkit developed specifically for municipalities by Ontario Operation Lifesaver. Ask your local police service to declare Rail Safety Week over social media. Engage with Operation Lifesaver's Stop Track Tragedies video campaign, reminding Canadians it's not worth the risk. The videos tell the personal stories of those affected by railway crossing and trespassing incidents and will feature the voices of friends and family members impacted by rail incidents. Their reflections are important message of what they would do differently if given a chance. And if your community is receiving a Look, Listen Live decal installed from Operation Lifesaver, we encourage you to review the social media materials OL prepared and sent in anticipation of this event. Also, CPKC Police will once again educate the public during Rail Safety Week about how to be safe around tracks and trains, and they will conduct rail safety campaigns in communities across the network with participation from other police agencies and schools to talk about the role motorists, pedestrians, and general public play in reminding everyone that safety is a shared responsibility. CPKC Chief of Police Canada, Dale Rzinski, explains the impact of the incident can have a long-lasting effect on families, friends, communities, train crews, and first responders. So, Mr. Kearns, maybe what we can do is ask Mr. Hanush if they are going to actually do something with Parry Sound. Maybe a letter could be written just asking if they're going to be in the schools with Parry Sound and find out. That would be really good.
Certainly, Your Worship. And I just wanted to add, we did last year and the year prior applied some of the decals, the Look, Listen, Live campaign which is part of Operation Lifesaver. So I do want to acknowledge the fact that
we have participated.
We have participated, and they have come to town, and we did meet with representatives of Near North Board, I think at the Isabella Crossing last year. And also that I know the CN police, we've had some good conversations with them just in terms of their presence and ability. And I have maybe anecdotally noticed them in town seemingly more, but they did acknowledge they have quite a large area to police, so it makes it very difficult for them to be in many places. That's all. They have been very good when we do engage. So I can have that conversation with.
I've talked to some of their officers, and my goodness, the area that they have to patrol is astounding. And one or two people can't do really what they're doing. More boots on the ground is really what they need. So anyway, anything further on this? No, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Moved by Counselor Blaski, seconded by Counselor Ashford, whereas Town of Parry Sound Council on June 18th passed resolution 2024-099, which requests that the interests of creating more coherent and standardized regulatory framework for ride-sharing services, that the province of Ontario take over from municipalities the responsibility for ride-share regulations and licensing. And whereas resolution 2024-099 has been forwarded to the Premier, the Minister of Transportation, the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, MPP Graydon Smith, and the Association of Municipalities of Ontario. Whereas the Town of Parry Sound is interested in broadening support for the request that the province of Ontario take on the responsibility for ride-sharing regulations and licensing. Now, therefore, the Council of Town of Parry Sound hereby resolves that resolution 2024-099 be circulated to the West Parry Sound area municipalities and to the Parry Sound Area Chamber of Commerce with a request for support and further circulation to relevant associations for support. Discussion? Councilor McDonald?
Your worship, do we know how this is dealt with in other provinces or in the states? Do the are the municipalities in large part in control of regulation on ride sharing, or is it a higher level?
Ms. Kruger's on the screen, so maybe.
Through your worship, I don't have much insight to add as to how it is operated in other municipalities. Sorry, in other provinces or perhaps in other countries. I do know that there is support is being gathered because of sort of our mismatch regulations that different municipalities have entered into over the years trying to manage the ride sharing industry. But as we discussed previously during that resolution, it means that a lot of areas are left without ride sharing because it just doesn't make sense in small municipalities with great distances between them. So having the province regulate it would really assist in opening up ride sharing to more municipalities. Perhaps what is working in another province could work here, but I'm not sure how they regulate, so.
Okay, thank you.
Anything further on this one? All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Item 953. Moved by Councillor Keith, second by Councillor Ashford, whereas the Town of Parry Sound Council on December 19th, 2023 passed resolution 2023-190, which supported the North Bay Parry Sound District Health Unit Board's call upon the province of Ontario to A, invest in surveillance and analytical methodologies to gain a better understanding of the prevalence of intimate partner violence, IPV, B, develop a provincial IPV strategy, and C, increase funding for Healthy Babies, Healthy Children home visiting program, wherein staff respond to disclosure of intimate partner violence. And whereas the first of 86 recommendations released on June 28, 2022 by the coroner's jury serving on the inquest of the September 2nd, 2015 deaths of Carolyn Culdon, Anastasia Kuzik, and Natalie Waterdam in Renfrew County calls upon the government of Ontario to formally declare intimate partner violence as an epidemic. And whereas since the release of said coroner's jury recommendations, more than 100 municipalities, police service boards, and service providers across the province are declaring intimate partner violence as an epidemic. And whereas Bill 173, Intimate Partner Violence Epidemic Act 2024, introduced in the Ontario Legislature on March 7th, 2024, which recognized that intimate partner violence is an epidemic in Ontario and has not yet passed, being referred to Standing Committee on Justice Policy. There's more. Now therefore, the Council of Corporation of the Town of Parry Sound hereby joins with over 100 municipalities, police services boards, and service providers across the province in declaring intimate partner violence as an epidemic and urges the province to immediately pass Bill 173, Intimate Partner Epidemic Act 2024, and that copies of this resolution be forwarded to the Honorable Doug Ford, Premier of Ontario, Lauren Coe, Chair of the Standing Committee on Justice Policy, the Honorable Sylvia Jones, Minister of Health, Margaret Stiles, Leader of the Official Opposition, Honorable Graydon Smith, MPP for Parry Sound Muskoka, and the Association of Municipalities in Ontario. You know, they're dragging their feet on this one. They're also dragging their feet on, you know, the codes of conduct and how people are treated as well in staff in municipalities, and not only municipalities, but in government as well. So I think they need to step up a little bit. Any further comments? Councillor Ashford.
Can we add circulating this with the municipality in Essex that circulated this resolution to us?
Yeah, they should get a copy of that, right? Like,
We can circulate it to the municipality of Essex. The first municipality that started circulating this was the county of Lanark back in December 2023, and we've received numerous resolutions from various municipalities in the meantime. The most recent, I believe, you know, may have been from the municipality of Essex, and that's the one that Councillor Ashford noticed and brought forward. So we can circulate it back to Essex and perhaps Lanark County as well.
Yep, that'd be good. Anything further? All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Borneman. No, this resolution of the tower.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So moved by Councillor Borneman, seconded by Councillor McDonald, that subject to receipt of engineering drawings and terms included in a future agreement with the Parry Sound Community Radio Association, PSCRA, Council of the Corporation of the Town of Parry Sound approves in principle use on the Bow Street Water Tower as a location for the PSCRA transmission site. Any discussion? Councillor Bileski.
Excuse me, Councillor Gillespie.
Your microphone. Yeah.
I'm just wondering through Mr. Kearns, is there any downside to us approving this?
Through your worship, actually, we took a look at what the proposal was a little while ago. There have been antenna located on the tower in the past. There's actually a couple that need to be removed that are no longer being used. So if all the engineering criteria are met for anchoring, and my understanding, it wasn't a significant antenna on top of the tower, and as long as it doesn't interfere with any other uses or communications, I can't see any issue why or how there would be a downside to this.
Great, thank you.
Councillor McDonald, Councillor Keaton, and Councillor Borneman.
Thank you, Worship. I guess to Mr. Kearns, is there a fee associated with this on a yearly basis?
Through your worship, typically or historically, there have been fees charged to users of the various locations throughout town for this type of use. We could look at historic agreements and get a kind of a baseline historically, but it probably varied depending on the use.
Because we had antenna up on the forestry tower as well.
Yes.
I think there was a charge for that.
There were, and then it's since been decommissioned as well. But I think, historically, internet, radio communications, all those sorts of things have been located on the various towers.
Yeah, Councillor Keith.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Cairns. Two questions. One, when you're looking at that current fee, I would hope that it was going to be in reference to current value, not something that was 20 years ago, and so therefore we're charging the same fee. But number two, besides, is seeing as we had antennas there before, and some of them have been left there, I take it then town is going to have to remove those antennas. So therefore, if that be the case, this time around, should the antenna ever need to be removed because people aren't in business, shall we say, is there a fee or is it their responsibility to remove it? Because it just seems every time town staff is doing something that somebody else does, then it's costing the taxpayer.
So through your worship, certainly we wouldn't reference vintage agreements necessarily to get the value. I would also suggest that there may be a difference between different organizations, whether it was a commercial endeavor previously that was a for-profit, might receive a different consideration than a not-for-profit, for instance. And certainly there ideally will be some sort of a clause in these agreements so we're not left with legacy equipment to deal with in any installation. So we can certainly address that as well in an agreement going forward.
Councillor Borneman.
I think most of my questions have been already asked. Mr. Cairns, is there any opportunity to reuse the antenna that are already in place rather than installing other gadgets?
Through your worship, we could certainly look at that, but I have a feeling that they were for a completely different purpose, so they may not be compatible.
All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Moved by Councillor McCann, seconded by Councillor McDonald. That bylaw number 2024-7443 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council be considered as read a first time. All in favor? That's carried. All members in favor of having the second and third readings? That's carried. Moved by Councillor McDonald, seconded by Councillor McCann, that the bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time, passed, signed, and sealed. All in favor? That's carried. So prior to adjourning, I'd like to offer the following information to the public regarding the next council meeting. The next meeting of council for the town of Parry Sound is scheduled for Tuesday, September 17th, 2024 at 7 p.m. The meeting will be held at the town of Parry Sound Council Chambers at 52 Seguin Street, entrance via Gibson Street. Be live streamed and recorded. All regular council meetings are held at 7 p.m. on the first and third Tuesday of each month, except January and August, where only one regular meeting is scheduled. Council meeting schedule, notices of special council meetings, complete agendas and minutes, and instructions on accessing live streamed and recorded council meetings are all posted on the town's website. Go to www.parrysound.ca and use the search bar. Your TV airs council meetings on Saturday at 9:30 a.m. following a regular council meeting. And for Cogeco listings, contact www.yourtv. Thank you, everyone, and have a good night.